William Thomson, first Baron of Kelvin, was one of the leading scientists of the 19th century. He devised the absolute temperature scale, now called the Kelvin scale, formulated the second law of thermodynamics, and is credited with numerous other achievements. He is also quoted, inaccurately, some claim, with having made the following pronouncement in a speech to the Royal Society in 1900. "There is nothing new to be discovered in physics now. All that remains is more and more precise measurement." Regardless of whether the attribution is correct, it's indisputable that everyone, even the greatest scientists, makes mistakes. No human being ever has, nor will they ever comprehend the full intricacy of existence. Since the deployment of the James Webb Space Telescope on December 25, 2021, frantic headlines proclaiming the death of the Big Bang Theory have proliferated. As we have claimed, nobody really knows, but ultimately, the best we can hope to achieve is a model that is apodictic. The word apodictic comes from the field of formal logic and refers to a proposition that is incontrovertibly or demonstrably true as a result of having been deduced systematically in a stepwise manner from incontestable foundational principles in such a way that denying it leads to a contradiction or an absurdity. With this in mind, we postulate now and will further substantiate the following apodictic assertion. Spirit or spacetime, faith or physics, revered orthodoxy or scientific certitude. Most of us speculate that there's more to life than what's revealed through the narrow bandwidth of our senses, but have difficulty taking that intellectual leap. We yearn to believe in something more, but feel foolish for doing so. What we perceive as conflict between traditional spiritual belief and the indisputable revelations of modern science. This is truly the illusion. Our technological advances have become so frequent, their theories so recondite, and their ramifications so cataclysmic, that we wistfully long for some revelation to provide guidance through the personal, ethical, and social labyrinth that impedes our spiritual evolution. Can this deflowering of nature's most intimate secrets ever offer any clues as to what we dare hope, how we should live, and the ways in which we may control the trajectory of our existence? Can science rationalize ethical choice? Can mathematics show us right from wrong? Can we harness the awesome power of human consciousness to elevate our state of being? Science, spirit, faith, physics, certainty, conjecture. Reality versus superstition? No, not necessarily. And that is what we'll attempt to prove as we navigate the divide between orthodoxy and modern physics. Faith, inaccurately seen as belief in spite of evidence to the contrary, is actually a crucial component of intellectual progress and must not be diminished or denigrated. By showing that modern scientific principles are consistent with spiritual and mystical beliefs, we gain certainty in the understanding of these concepts and can fully embrace moral and ethical precepts. All of which is to say that yes, there are such things as good and bad, right and wrong, and it's not just a question of thought making it so. Our apodictic justification begins with this cryptic incantation, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle states that it is impossible to know both the position and velocity of a particle with complete certainty. Formulated by the German physicist and Nobel laureate Werner Heisenberg in 1927, it states that the more accurately you measure one of these properties, the less accurately you can measure the other. This concept might seem counterintuitive, but it has been rigorously verified under strict experimental conditions. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle and the Schrödinger's cat thought experiment, which we are about to discuss, are related because both illustrate the strange and unpredictable nature of the quantum world. Schrödinger's cat highlights the concept of superposition, which is a key aspect of quantum mechanics. In 1935, physicist Erwin Schrödinger suggested a hypothetical thought experiment. In Schrödinger's fable, a small amount of radioactive substance is placed into a container. The quantity is precisely measured, so there's a 50% probability that it will decay, emitting an alpha particle within the period of 1 hour. If an emission occurs, the device will release a fatal dose of poison gas. Conventional logic demands that after 1 hour, the cat will be alive if the radioactive element has not decayed, or dead if it has. That is, the cat will be either alive or dead. However, quantum mechanics stipulates a far different interpretation. Schrödinger claims that the moment before we look in the box, the cat exists in some mixed state of dead and alive, and only at that instant does it resolve into one of its two final conditions. The point Schrödinger was trying to make by proposing the cat paradox is that we can't say anything about the cat itself before looking. And only as a result of that observation does the cat remain a beloved pet or become a remorseful memory. The only knowledge of the cat we can achieve is a single one of these outcomes, or so he believed at the time. However, beginning with the work of David Wineland and Chris Monroe in the late 1990s, numerous experiments have proven that, in effect, the cat is both alive and dead. Although these experiments confirm that something strange is going on in the quantum world, they do little to explain how it is happening. An explanation proposed by physicist John Wheeler is that reality may not be wholly physical, but in some sense we create not only the observation, but reality itself. One of the first to consider how so bizarre a phenomena might occur was Dr. Hugh Everett III. In 1957, Everett proposed what has now become widely known as the many-world interpretation of quantum mechanics. Everett described a multiverse, in which time branches off into every possibility. We have one universe in which the cat is alive, and another where it's dead. The effect of our choice is that you think you experience one branch or the other, but in reality both exist, embedded in an ineffable space-time matrix that neither begins nor ends. For this, or any of what follows, to make sense, we need to clarify our understanding of time. We'll delve into the nature of time in a future chapter, but for now, we'd need just acknowledge that virtually all current cosmological models have time itself, quote, coming into existence, unquote, at the instant of the so-called Big Bang. The reason for the quotes is to emphasize the inherent difficulty in contemplating any interaction suggesting cause and effect, because any such connection is purely illusory. As French physicist Louis de Broglie wrote, "In spacetime, everything, which for each of us constitutes the past, the present, and the future, is given en bloc. Each observer, as his time passes, discovers, so to speak, new slices of spacetime which appear to him as successive aspects of the material world, though in reality the ensemble of events constituting spacetime exist prior to his knowledge of them." Similarly, St. Augustine of Hippo asks of God, "How could they pass by those countless ages which you had not yet made, although you are the author and creator of all ages? Or how did they pass by if they never were? You made that very time, and no times could pass by before you made those times. But if there was not time before heaven and earth, why do they ask what you did then? There was no then, where there was no time." If we could behold the vista of time the way we survey the expanse of a landscape, we'd perceive that events, in reality, do not unfold before us with the passage of time. Rather, they would present themselves all at once across the field of our vision. Hence, time does not pass us by. We navigate through this static ensemble of events, experiencing only one. Our primitive meat computer brains are only capable of processing one experience or the other, but both are fully instantiated, both equally real. There is one instance of reality in which we take measures to preserve our planet, and another, equally real, in which complacency permits it to be destroyed. Even the most stolid atheist will allow that the human mind may represent something that exceeds the sum of its material components. Such reveries bring us face to face with the dizzying implications of the many worlds hypothesis and strain our understanding of reality and the nature of time and space. In order to better understand the mind-boggling implication of these theories, consider the following example. Meet Professor Wokley. On this particular morning, the professor awakened at exactly 7:25 a.m., just as he had every prior morning throughout his entire adult life. He performed his morning ablutions, just as he had every prior morning throughout his entire adult life. He drank his first cup of coffee standing up, while watching his favorite morning news program, just as he had done every prior morning throughout his entire adult life. After coffee, Professor Wokley washed up and thoroughly brushed his teeth, as he'd done every prior morning throughout his entire adult life. He carefully selected an appropriate ensemble, dressed, and headed off to work. Turning off the television, he's about to leave when the still half-full cup of coffee beckons. Enjoy a leisurely walk to the bus stop, or have another cup and then have to rush, he asks himself. If the many worlds model is correct, then in fact he does both. So now the question arises, who are these individuals who, until just this moment, had been a single entity? Are they two utterly distinct people who just happen to have shared every single memory and experience from the moment of birth until that split second of decision? Does there remain some ethereal filament that continues to connect them as they follow divergent life journeys? We'll explore these and other ramifications of this bizarre worldview and the concept of quantum entanglement in future installments. For now, let's just follow along and see how these two lifelines might play out. In the interest of clarity, I'll refer to the one who just left as Assiduous Wokley and his counterpart as Indolent Wokley. After just a few sips, Indolent Wokley realizes that now he must brush his teeth again. As Assiduous Wokley whistles a happy tune, enjoying the cool morning air, Indolent Wokley brushes his teeth quickly. He'll have to rush in order to catch his usual bus. Indolent Wokley takes the shortcut through a disreputable alley at a brisk trot. He may just make the bus after all. As the bus approaches, Assiduous Wokley leaves his newspaper for the next person and calmly awaits the bus, while Indolent Wokley makes a mad dash to close the remaining distance. Neither can ever be consciously aware of the other's existence, and from that moment forward, right until his final breath, both versions of Professor Wokley follow the exact same path. One individual or two, one spirit, one soul, one Ka. In a future symposium, we'll delve into the phenomena of quantum entanglement, through which two things, once in contact, remain instantaneously connected, even when separated by incomprehensible distances of space. Difficult as it is to imagine, we must compel ourselves to contemplate time, not as it appears to our severely constrained physical senses, but in a way more consistent with what science has proven more accurate. Imagine time as a cosmic crystal, a delicate teardrop frozen in a temporal void. From this vertiginous perspective, we perceive the entire expanse, from creation to its inevitable denouement, in a single glance. We are peering into time from the outside, an almost infinite branching of possibilities, every choice, great or small, for every decision maker, every degree of freedom simply is. There can be no cause or effect, because every possible before or after is embedded in this static, timeless matrix. Similarly, asking what created time leads to an absurdity, because creation implies change over time. We see that all of the activity seems to originate at a single point, what we call the beginning of time, and tends overall toward an opposite singularity. However, notice how some paths just seem to lead nowhere. We'll explore what these nuances might mean as our analysis continues. For now, let's focus in on one tiny segment, representing the hypothetical situation we've just considered, that of Professor Wokeley. We can see where the professor awakened, went about his morning rituals, and then we see where he encountered a decision point, one among the countless that define his incomprehensibly multitudinous and diverse choices and their corresponding lifelines. Here we see a tiny, inconsequential fork in the lifeline of Professor Wokeley. Here we see the life path followed by the procrastinating, indolent Wokeley as he hurried to catch the bus. In our example, indolent Wokeley reached the bus stop in the nick of time, safe and sound. However, we notice several tiny branches that abruptly end. What happened to indolent Wokeley? Was he struck by car and killed? Perhaps mugged and murdered for the content of his briefcase? And here we see the more leisurely path traversed by assiduous Wokeley. And thence he continues with the same life, right up to the end of his days. From within this frozen chrysalis, only the most infinitesimal fragment of the full being interacts with the world defined within this time-space constraint. The entire entity consists of the sum total of all the possible decisions and the ensuing paths and their repercussions. Consciously, each individual instance is unaware of the others, and the details are relevant only in terms of navigating the mundane day-to-day interactions. This part sees clearly only in one direction, which it calls the past. The full intelligence absorbs the more subtle lessons learned and benefits from a wider perspective. But remember that the entire ensemble of events, choices, lifelines, experiences, great and small, good and bad, all exist eternally, fully contained within time itself. In future installments, we'll look at how we can use this knowledge to live better, more satisfying, and fulfilling lives. We'll learn to analyze our past choices, understand how different decisions might have led to better or worse situations than that in which you find yourself in your local now. The resulting wisdom is what permits the you of other possibilities to benefit from your current enlightenments. And that brings us to the conclusion of this first presentation. If you'd like to see how this model of reality favors right over wrong, mercy over vindictiveness, and rewards the meek above the arrogant, give a thumbs up, subscribe. You know the drill. I'll conclude with a recitation of one of the most famous poems from one of America's most beloved poets, Robert Frost. The poem, The Road Not Taken, has been animated to show the relativistic quantum reality, that both roads are taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. In some inexplicable way, there exists an arrow of spiritual refinement analogous to the arrow of time, by which we may envision the advancement of the spirit. The more of our failures we recognize, the fewer mistakes we need to repeat in order to advance toward our quintessential nature, the ne plus ultra. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth in me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do,